everybody, welcome to Adobe DITAWORLD. My name is Bernard-Aschwanden. A quick thank you to Stefan Gentz and everybody at Adobe for organizing this, and of course to you for attending. If you happen to have your phone, feel free to pull it out, get your camera ready. The QR code in the top left is to my LinkedIn page. The QR code in the bottom right is to our webpage where you can sign up for a demo. You can actually get a chance to see some of the things in regards to AEM guides using your content in our environment. So do feel free to reach out. I'm doing my job. My name is Bernard-Aschwanden. I am the EVP of Business Development at Precision Content in Canada. And I think the rest of the information on the slides pretty much speak for themselves, so we'll move ahead. Part of my job is to go out and talk to clients and prospective clients and find out how is it that they're actually creating content now. I usually ask questions like, where are you? Where do you want to be? Why aren't you there yet? And how can we help get you there? So in regards to working with AEM guides and some of the productivity challenges that I hear from people, I thought I'd put together something that really quickly goes through and showcases a couple of things that I like to do when I'm working with and helping people work with AEM guides. My initial thought for the first couple of slides was to go in and build content and put everything together. And then I thought, hey, there's a lot of talk about ChatGPT. I've been using it for over a year now. Why don't I ask it to take my outline, my information, and come back with something interesting? And it did. I fed it a prompt, you can see that on the left, based on some information that I had, and it came back with common tasks in regards to building a log home and also when creating technical documentation. So let me go in and talk to these for a moment. And instead of just showing you the slide with the tasks, building the home, creating tech docs, I'm going to work my way through it conversationally, but I'll give you something more interesting to look at. That has a nice sunset view. That's actually off of our balcony area. And then you can see the shoreline, the original view of the trees once we thinned it out a little bit, putting in a foundation and starting to build what we had. Well, that's planning the structure. In the log home we went through, we did some design layout, and in the TechCom world, you would define the structure and organization of your technical documentation. You have that plan. We had to scope materials, select appropriate logs, and all of the building material for the house, the siding, the roof. In the same way, you want to identify all of the required materials, the content, the resources that are going to be required to work with your documentation. We had to come up with budgets. We had to estimate costs of the home project in the same way that if you're dealing with tech docs, you have to allocate resources and plan your budget. Here, meeting with stakeholders. You can actually see the documentation right there, the blueprints. Interacting with subject matter experts. Doing on-site visits. Making sure that we're monitoring what's happening, keeping everyone informed. In regards to the log home, that meant collaborating with architects, contractors, construction workers, experts in plumbing, experts in electrical and masonry, checking on the progress, making sure that things were being done at the speed that we expected, and making sure that we kept everybody involved in the conversation. If we look at that from documentation and that structured workflow in the CCMS, you want to talk to your subject matter experts, your stakeholders, your reviewers. You want to get input and expertise from technical experts and content contributors and consultants. You want to make sure that you adhere to the documentation workflow. You review the drafts, you monitor the progress. And again, everybody stays informed along the way. And then you execute to the plan. In our case, we want to build the home according to the plan. We knew what we wanted at the end. In documentation, you'd want to follow the structured workflow so that you create and review and publish all of your documentation. We make sure that content finds the right home, either placing and organizing the furniture inside the home or any of the components of the house. In the same way for documentation, you would apply metadata and taxonomy so that you have that content discovery capability within your CCMS. And the last two things would be enabling access so that readers, authors, stakeholders can get to what they need. Well, we're stakeholders in the house. We want to make sure that the doors, the windows, the entryways are all taken care of so that we can get in, move around. The same idea applies inside the CCMS. You want to make sure that people can get to the right places so that they can do the job that they need to do. ChatGPT closed it out by saying, do it right the first time. We wanted to ensure the quality construction, the finishing touches went in so that everything looked the way we wanted it to. All of this comes together at the end in the CCMS world. You want to follow the best practices and standards for creating accurate and effective documentation. So let's actually dive in. Let's take a look. Let's work inside the CCMS, and I'm going to show you some things that I like to do to make my life easier the first time around. Returning then to the document, but also comparing it to the log home. We talked to experts. We went out and we had people who knew what they were doing create the initial content. Let's do the same thing in Word. Let's have some people contribute. They can use Word, they can use styles, and they can give us a good document like this one to get started. So imagine a Word document. Somebody's already put it together using title, heading 1, heading 2, properly bulleting information, assigning all of the right styles, doing things the way that it should. Then you want to ingest that into guides, convert it to data. Maybe you need to reorganize it, and you might have templates in guides. There are different default templates that exist, and you can edit and create your own as well. I'm going to show you more about snippets so that you have an easy and efficient way to create content using either existing snippets or building your own, and some of the complexity that goes into creating structured content that a snippet can help basically make go away. I'll also talk a little about reusing content and then switch over and basically poke at ideas. Just see things that I do again just to make my life easier. Along the way, I'll also go in and try to show you a couple of different shortcuts, ways that you can streamline content creation. So using keyboard shortcuts, creating lists, reorganizing the content, working with the interface, not just the toolbar that's at the top, but also the ones that are on the left and the right. And along the way, I will make sure that we've demonstrated. So creating, I'll have shown you that information. I'm going to show you how to lock files, how to go through and take version content and compare it, how to manage material, using assets, and showcasing additional things, behind the scenes techniques. So I've written up these tips and tricks, and I have content creation and the idea of starting inside Word. And people are like, what? What do you mean you want to start inside Word? And why not? Make sure you're using the tools right, and you can do some pretty impressive things. I'm actually going to go in and take this source Word file, bring it in, and show it as a starting point. I won't work with it and do a lot of editing because I have other content that represents information better. But towards the end, I'll come back, we'll take a look at it, make sure that we covered the things that we said we would cover. And again, the Word document that I have here covers in more detail some of the things that you're going to see live. I'll jump back and forth a couple of times. I'll go into the code view, work in the author view. Again, just different ways to work with the system. I'll also show you a bunch of neat little tricks in the interface. And then as I can, some of the newer features that are inside maps so that you can just create, edit, reorganize, manage, publish. I'd love to go in and show native PDF functionality and smart templates. I've got them here as bullets. I'm going to run out of time. That's the bad news. The good news is that Sebastian and myself, so Sebastian from Mayo Clinic, me, still from Precision Content, the two of us have actually done an entire session in which we showcase a little bit of Mayo Clinic's active implementation of the idea of native PDF capabilities and smart templates. Let's kick it off in a second by logging in, but first, yes, I'm speaking really quickly. This is a recorded session. You'll have access to it afterwards, so you can pause it. You can go back, you can timestamp and say, hey, there was a really cool thing. So track where we are in the session. Again, it's recorded. You can watch it, take your own notes later on. My goal is to give you a lot of information. So I'm going to start off by taking the Word document that you saw a few moments ago and just drag and drop it into this conversion folder. Quick tip, it's getting dropped into a database type of an environment. Spaces are the enemy. So I start off by making sure I don't have spaces in my actual document name, and then drag drop. That kicks off a customizable workflow. So right now it's actually going through converting the file and it's going to put it into an output folder. The entire output folder location, the way that it handles your Word documents, if you have custom things that I don't have in mind, all of it's configurable. Again, it's the type of thing we do as a business. A couple of seconds, the Word document's converted. Let's take a quick look at it. By the way, behind the scenes, it's all AEM assets for the file management. And I have a W2D, a Word to Data folder. And the cool thing about assets is that it's also Adobe, so it's being leveraged by Adobe Experience Manager, where AEM Guides is being used, and that's why this folder, Day in the Life, was created. This entire workflow took the ingested file, converted the material, stores it inside assets, lets me later on go in and do whatever I want with it, including, in this case, open the folder. In this case, the converted Word document created a map as well as a collection of topics. The reason it did it is that in the styled Word document, I've already begun by using things like title, heading 1, and heading 2 correctly. Clicking on that icon automatically opened up the map inside the editor. I'll click on the pencil icon. For those of you that have worked with the software before and you're expecting to see the map editor, this is still inside the map editor, but there's a new outline view. Nice, clean, concise day in the life, and then each of the main topics. You'll see tips and tricks can be expanded as well. Before I do that though, check this out. I'm about to show numbers, so again, take a look under day in the life at the topics. Here we go. This may not seem like a big deal to see the numbering down here, the 1, 2, 3, 4, but it makes it so much easier to just see the information in the hierarchy, especially if you start to get into more complicated nested content. Super easy to see 3.4 as content reuse rather than me telling you the words and you looking around. There's a bunch of ways to reorganize this, so I can click and move it up. It's now represented by 3.3, and moving it back down is just as easy. Nice, quick, easy way to work with a map. I'm going to close it off, so I just click the X. By the way, the little asterisk next to day in the life just says that I've made changes, but I haven't saved it. The changes I made were the reorganization and so on. I'm just going to discard it without saving. Remember, there's icons that run down the left-hand side as well. Take advantage of these. This one's the repository, and I have some demo files. If you have a root folder called EN, in this case English, and another one called DE, there's actually some really cool machine translation capabilities built in, so that as soon as you create content in the English, if you want to, you can go in and you can manage that and then publish it into the other language so that it gets you started with translation. It's a couple of button clicks and you've got your German version. It's not going to be perfect, but it's a quick starting point. I built some sample content for electric vehicles. Before I go too much further, I just want to mention the structure that's in here. You can see things like the vehicle guide, glove box owners, the American electrification, Asian electrification buyer's guide, European electrification. These are the maps. In here, I also have things like dealer documentation. That would be a subfolder. I have the EV Adventures, which is my electric vehicle company's entire off-road and boating services. I have a common glossary, a set of images, a few more maps. I have a reuse folder as well, and then of course I have all of my topics. This is one way to organize the information so that I don't have too much clutter, too much showing up at once, and it makes it difficult to edit. Already talked to you about Word content. So I've shown you how to take the Word content, how to ingest it into guides, how to reorganize it. That was one of my core things I wanted to get through. But there's also the templates that are inside guides itself. When you go in and you create a DITA topic, where do you think it comes from? Behind the scenes, there's templates. There's a set of templates for topics and a set of templates for maps. This dropdown is driven by something called a folder profile. I'll come back to that in a few minutes. Right now, though, I'm just going to create a concept. I need a title for this, and I'm probably not going to have anything witty and clever. Literally, I'm going to create a sample concept just so that you can see what it looks like, and this is totally out of the box. Then I create the thing. Admittedly, a pretty bland start. This is my sample content. It has the short description, the paragraph. Remember, I mentioned the tools that are along the left-hand side of the screen here. I'm going to click that double chevron and expand it so that I can see what the icons are called. Kind of a neat little idea. I can see all of the words. The last one, templates. Now, you may not see this in your instance. It depends on your permissions inside AEM Guides. I happen to be logged in as me. I have administrator rights inside the system, so I'm going to go into the templates to show a few cool things. I have templates for both maps and topics. In a moment, I'll open up concept, but I also want you to notice that I have the dealer docs and some patient consumer information. Again, there's this idea of smart templates. Instead of just going in and starting off with a default reference, task, concept, and so on, you could actually build an entire shell of supporting documents. And then when you go in, for example, let's say in an automotive environment, you could take a set of dealer documentation and in bulk create a map that contains all of the different documentation that you need to get started, so that instead of creating from scratch and dragging and dropping 38 different things from here, there, and the other place to build out your map, you could have a smart map and a set of smart topics that become part of an aptly named smart template. And again, we did that with some patient and consumer and other information with Mayo Clinic. So if you get the chance, watch the session that Sebastian and I do together on that. I'm also going to turn on the tags, so apologies to those that don't like using the tag view, but it's really helpful, especially when building templates. This is the same structure I saw a few moments ago when I went in and I actually created a brand new concept. Let's update this. I'm adding a little bit more to the structure, so I click after the P element. Control Enter pops up a dialog, and then I can start typing the name of the element that I want. So Control Enter is your shortcut to get a choice. It's similar to clicking the plus sign on the toolbar right near the top. As you type, this would narrow down and show you a set of elements that match your criteria. Here I'm using example, double click it. Decent start. I want to expand what goes into an example. It's a pretty boring element on its own. So again, I start to type. Two elements contain the word title, the title that I want, and the win title, so I can just double click the one that I want. Example and title, still a little bland. I'll just add a few more things. Again, Control Enter. Typing P kind of narrows it down to elements that contain the letter P. There's a lot of them, admittedly. The good news for me is that I actually want the P element, the paragraph, so again, double click. I'm being lazy, I'm just going to save this. I could version it in order to compare them later on and track it and roll back and all the things that go. I'll show you some stuff with versions later. Not a lot, but I'll show you a few things. Take a look at the template for a second. I'm about to close it, In the background, you'll see the original sample concept. Remember, I've added the example title paragraph. Back to the repository, I'm going to now create something new based on that template. I'll start off the same way. I click the ellipses in order to create something new. I'll work my way over to the data topic, and I'll see the same pop-up. Just in case you're looking for any kind of a trick, there's just the same choices under the drop-down. I'll leave it here for just a second. Notice there's nothing about dealer and automotive and so on. There's just the usual concept, task, reference type of stuff. Concept, same workflow that I created the last concept. But remember, I updated the template. In the background, you can still see the sample content from last time. Again, still no witty, clever name here, so I'll just create another sample content. Even in a planned and recorded session, I can't come up with anything better than sample content 2. My expectation is that when I click create, I will have a new sample content document named sample content 2, but the structure is going to be different than what's in the background. Watch for it. There it is. Ta-da. Ooh, magic. No, it's just that I've updated the template. All I did, though, was I took an existing template, modified the structure of it, saved it, and now it's automatically available. That's okay. I also want to go in and show you how to create a new template and then enable it. By the way, the dealer docs that I have are just a generic idea around the electric vehicle, but you could have anything in here. Again, I also have patient consumer information. These dealer docs, the 4 that you see, in order to create them, I took dealer docs, clicked the ellipses, chose new, created a topic, concept, task, reference type of information, populated it, and when I was done, I was left with this list. The only thing that I haven't done yet is enabled it. That's why in the previous drop-downs, I said you saw nothing about any dealer agreements, authorized models, nothing. Topic, concept, task, reference, and so on. None of these dealer docs yet. Now, we have to switch out of the role of an author for a moment and see what an admin might do. White transition slide. I'm now in the tools, and I'm going to take guides and adjust the folder profiles. This is where you get to set up things like templates. Cool tip, by the way, you can create additional folder profiles. So I often create different folder profiles for clients. I might go in and set them up so that specific groups inside an organization have permission to work in different areas in different ways. I'll show you what that means in a moment. There are a bunch of videos in the Adobe Experience League collection that my team helped create in order to market and promote the way that the software works. That includes videos that show you more about conditional attributes, authoring template, output preset, and the XML editor configuration. There's literally several hours worth of material out there that you can look at that goes into more details. Right now, authoring template is all I'm going to work with. The topic templates are limited. There's nothing in there about the automotive. These are the ones that we saw a few minutes ago when I created new content. The nice thing is that, again, I'm the admin. I'm going to go in and add templates that my users who work in the global profile, which is basically everybody, are going to be able to work with. Before anyone panics, I'm going to scroll down. And after task, I have the authorized model, service information, territory, etc. So this is the automotive info. I'm just going to add one template for service information just for ease of speed. Bottom of the list, after troubleshooting, service information. Top corner, save. And in the same tone, middle of screen, success. All right, I'm done playing administrator. Let's go see what this means for the day-to-day author. Another magical white transition screen. All right, over in the author world, somebody comes along, goes to the topics, clicks the ellipses. Same idea of creating a new data topic, but remember, we added a template. I'm expecting the topic dropdown to have more choices. Ooh, the drama. There's service information. Now, if I did a concept, I'd still get the concept with the extra example, etc. But in this case, I'm actually going to go in and choose the brand new template. Sticking with the letter S, I'm going to create a new topic. My 2 previous samples are going to get another sample for service information. At least it'll make it easy to find all the files that start with the word sample so that I can clean up my repository later. By the way, that template contains a lot more information in it than my initial task concept reference. I'm dealing with a dealership. I want to make sure that the service information is quite comprehensive in order to get started. Maybe I'm putting together legal documents in order to get a new automotive service center up and running. It better have the right content. Here, all I did was I created one document based on the one template, so it's pretty decent. But had I gone in and used a smart template set, I could have actually created a map. And again, that map could have contained 5, 10, 40 different unique components, and it would have pulled all of them together and populated them so that you can start off by building an entire collection instead of one file at a time. You can even point to reusable things, like, for example, a legal document, so that when you use the Smart template and you build a brand new map, all of the legal information always points to a non-editable, consistent legal document that's included, as well as all of the shell material, like what you see here, that then could be modified in regards to each individual dealership, or each medical condition, or each software procedure, or each API document that you create. So imagine the possibilities of Smart templates. All right, enough on templates. Let's transition and go look at the next thing. Again, that double chevron over on the left-hand side is your friend. Take advantage of your screen real estate and get to know what the icons mean. Snippets, super cool idea. Think of a snippet as being a predefined structure. It's not going to have the exact same content time after time, but it's going to have the same structure, so that instead of creating a complex layout, you could just click and drag from the snippet right into your document. I'll show you what I mean. Instead of creating a section and then creating a title, I can grab a section with title from my snippets and drag it over. Now, these are pre-existing snippets. I'll show you how to create them in a second. Technically, it's a section with a title and a P element. I actually use these samples for a lot of things, so I'll just select and delete that. Snippets are also a little picky. For example, if you have a snippet component for things like a step, you can't throw it into a concept. So I'm going to go into the repository and find another document so that I can demo different snippets. I've got a task that explains how to charge an electric vehicle. Amongst other things, this includes steps that then allow for one or more step. This snippet is going to be for a step with info or results. It's basically a more involved step rather than just getting step and a command. Then drag and drop to a valid location. When I created these snippets, I actually wrote in a couple of words like these, double click for this, that, or the other, so that somebody gets a little bit of guidance and they just double click and type in what they want. Of course, if they don't need as many list items, they could always select a list item and delete it. You can still add other things. It's just a starting point for a structural component so that you don't have to create all of it from scratch every single time. So that's a thing. I double click and I type. And I can do that over and over. So that's snippets. That's using an existing snippet. I take the snippet, I drag and drop. I don't need it anymore, so I'm going to delete, select it, press delete. I'm going to build out the result as well. So this is a little more behind the scenes work in order to set something up to build a snippet. Select the location, control enter, etc. Knowing your data helps. Typing, putting in the post rec as soon as I start to type it, narrows it down. And double click. I'll add a bit more to it. So inserting the elements, right? That click, control, enter, etc. Nice, easy, quick ways to create content. That's the basics of building a snippet. I'm going to give it some content as well. By the way, here's a little embedded tip. If you need to create a list, just create a set of paragraphs first. Then I click and drag to select both of them. Here's why. Once I've selected both of them, I move up and on the top toolbar, click the bullet. They become part of a list item and part of an unordered list, and then I can nest that by dragging and dropping it into the P element to build that logical connection between the parent and the child. As soon as the parent UL is selected, both child LI elements are also selected. And drag and drop. The hierarchy is nice. As soon as I click on the P element, I automatically get the nested UL and the nested LI elements. In the same way, when I select the post rec, I get all of the child elements of the post rec. I'll pause for a second, take a look. Cut and copy, insert after, insert before. If you want to rename an element, I've done that in the past where I take an OL and I want to rename it into a UL, or vice versa. Unwrap an element. For example, I have something that's wrapped in, let's say, code phrase, and I realize I don't actually need it as a code phrase. It was an error. I could unwrap it so that I remove the structure, but I keep the words. In this case, though, I'm going to create a snippet. The dialog's pretty easy to navigate. You put in some of your info at the top and the bottom. You see the sample snippet. If you needed to, you could actually go in and do some further edits. Obviously, give it a title that's going to make sense when somebody sees it in the snippet panel on the left. Do the same for the description. And a typo. I'll go ahead and create it anyway. You could always go in and edit a snippet, the title, the description, after the fact if you needed to. Most likely because you may want to update the content of the snippet, but hey, hypothetically, you could have a typo in the description. Having created this, I'll obviously select it and delete it. All that work actually did pay off though. I have my new snippet, so I drag and drop it. Because this is now an existing snippet, I drag, drop. So create your own snippets, use them for more complex items as well, like a complex step, table with merged materials. If you have a bunch of pre-written text that you want to use or a complex example structure, great, go for it. Take advantage of them. As with before, double-click Edit. And I double-click on the first nested bullet. This snippet's also a great way to give somebody who doesn't really get the idea of structured authoring a way to start with structured authoring. You just give them the shell, a place to write, and the opportunity to do things the right way as opposed to whatever way they want. Now it's easy for even a non-technical person to contribute. By the way, the event you're at is called DITAWORLD, so I am showing you the DITA tags on inside here. If you had turned those off, somebody would look at this, not even see the markup, and just start working. All right, templates and snippets. So I showed you working with templates inside guides, some of the defaults that exist, editing a template, creating new ones, enabling them. I showed you snippets, how to use an existing snippet and how to create your own. And the idea of building these combinations are really, really useful. It gives you a way that you can create content broadly for the non-technical user to get in and get started with structured content. Very cool thing. All right, next up, reusing content. I want to talk about reusing entire topics, going in and taking an entire collection of information, putting it into one or more maps, and then what happens when you change it. I have content inside the map for European electrification, and it's a child of Invest in the Future. Within this document is the reused pricing chart. Look at the top right corner of the table. So from left to right, I have the electric car, Electric Motors Inc., the e-sedan, etc., the pricing, $37,000 to $100,000. This pricing chart document is used for my European document. It's also used in other maps. I also have my Asian electrification document. Same structure. Remember, these could have been based on a smart template so that every time I build a new document set for different parts of the world, I automatically consolidate information into one place. Grab it, publish it, make sure that it's consistent across the board. Let's see what's under it. Yep, pricing chart. For argument's sake, production got less expensive. We were able to find more ways to automate workflows. We were able to go in and reduce the price that we charge consumers so that we remain competitive against any other organization that's out there making electric vehicles. So I've been told to lower the price. And just like that, $11,000 off of the top end price. I'm going to create a brand new version. So I'm not just saving over top of it, but I'm creating a snapshot in time, a point that I can go back to and say, give me the before, give me the after, and hopefully also give me the logic or the reason that this change was made. Comments and labels make it easier later on to find things and know why a change was made. By the way, if you look to the right top of the shaded area, you'll see that the current version reads 1.1 with an asterisk. Basically, it's version 1.1, but it has changed. I've saved this file a couple of times since the last time that it was worked with, so it has the asterisk next to the version number. The version number is also at the top of the dialog that I'm working with, so bear in mind, I currently have a 1.1. I've made modifications, lowered the price, etc. I'm going to save. I open this up from inside the Asian map. I'm now going to save, close, version, etc., and shut down the files that I have open. I've still got at least one other map where this is used. Let's pop open American electrification and see what we find. Same Invest in the Future. And it's actually the same pricing chart. You'll see that the price has updated here. I didn't have to go in and open up another version of the file. I didn't have to go out and find it somewhere else and say, oh, I've done a copy and paste. I just take one source and I update and modify it. So I'm reusing an entire topic. And when I make a change, it impacts everything. Now, it's important to know if you make a change that there's going to be potentially more than one thing that's impacted. So let's go explore that idea as well. So far, I've gone in, I've reused an entire topic. For example, all of the pricing information across multiple deliverables. I'm opening up legal, and on the right-hand side, I'm now going to go in and take a look at some document level properties. What you currently see is topic information for what I have open, but I also have references. Used in, really important. I know exactly where this document is used. If I make a change to it, I should be really careful because it's going to impact multiple deliverables. But I also have some of the links out of this. I have that battery puncture information that I'm going to go and make a modification to. So take a look at the attention. The note that's in blue that says battery puncture is a serious hazard. This is approved reusable information. So I'm going to update the phrasing here. And let's pretend we go through the whole review and legal has told us we have to make a change, etc. Nice quick edit. I'm going to be really careful when I do anything here. I'm going to version the material because this is reused. I want to be really careful about what's impacted and why I make a change. I'll add my notes. And remember, regulatory requirements might actually require that I track all of this formally so that if ever there's a problem or a miscommunication down the road and something happens, we can go back and know exactly what changed and when, who made the modification, and so on. The rest of this is common. It's the same workflow. When I'm done, I save. Let's go see what that means. Another tip within a tip, I've got a bunch of files open here, so I'm going to right-click on one of the tabs up in the topic list. A lot of choices. You may want to play with the idea of the locate in or the split if you have a couple of them open, kind of a neat one. I'm just going to go in and tell it to close and close all the topics. I'll pop open the buyer's guide and see what the impact was of the change that I just made to the battery info. Again, the blue information inside here has the updated note exactly the way that I've changed it because that is a conref. So I have reused entire topics. I've also gone in and reused specific content references, and when I make a modification to it, it updates everywhere. So there's some easy wins, notes, tips, and so on. You can have really complex combinations, but the great thing is this is all tracked. You know exactly what was changed, where it was changed, what the impact of it is. All right, final stretch. This is a different way to do reuse. I have 3 paragraphs in the middle. I have one on gas, I have one on pure electric, and one on hybrid. But the rest of the information around it remains the same. So I need a way that I can selectively show and hide conditional content. Think of things like product or platform or audience specific information. Currently, I've got a couple things bottom up. I've got that yellowy orange on the hybrid warranty. That's just a generic default. I've got the green one on the battery. That's actually the electric vehicle. And you can see that I've customized the conditions already. I also have a condition that exists for gasoline that I want to apply to the paragraph above the green. I then have a few choices. One of them is to click the ellipses and apply. In a second, you'll see it turn that same gray background from gasoline. And what you just saw was the application of a condition. So gasoline was applied. Electric vehicle, not only is it applied, but it's already got a custom platform. And what if you have other types of product platform audience, in this case platform, you've already got things assigned to it, but you want to stylize it? Super easy. You click inside, in this case, the hybrid info. This is how you stylize a new format for a condition. You literally click in it and then a plus sign. Then you fill in the dialogue. I'm actually guided by the attribute information on the right-hand side of my screen. So I know that this is platform. I know that it's hybrid. Conditions are really easy to work with. The entire interface is actually easy to work with. I'm also going to change the default color. And it's just a visual pop-up. I could change other things, but for now, the blue and apply. Watch for 2 things under the conditions platform. There's the electric vehicle and the gasoline. And watch the orange, gold, yellow color that you see on that last of the conditional paragraphs. That's pretty nice. Let me also show the preview. Notice that highlight conditional text is selected, and that's why you're seeing the colors. But you can also see the 3 conditions. And of course, as I click the check marks, watch what happens to the main content. I get rid of the option for gasoline, and I'm left seeing only the electric and the hybrid. On its own, this is kind of nice for the author. You get to see the different combinations, but you can actually go in at publish time and tell it to include or to exclude specific combinations of product platform audience. So I could publish and say only the hybrid version or only the electric vehicle information, and all of the other content is hidden. So I have a couple of reuse scenarios here. Really cool stuff. Back in the author world, there's one more thing I want to show you. I've already gone through and worked with a combination of templates and snippets and reuse. Oh my. I want to go in and just show you something with code view. This is a convenient place to show it. I don't often dive into the code, but it's really useful sometimes for very specific things. Remember, my platforms right now have electric vehicle, gasoline, and hybrid. You can see those inside the conditions. But let's go look at the code for a moment. Line 8 shows that the platform is gas. Behind the scenes, it is gas, and you'll see on 9 electric and so on, but gas is the technical value. Gasoline is the human value that a person sees. As mentioned, electric for the electric vehicle. This means that you could have really technical, small pieces of information behind the scenes, but for your day-to-day user that may be working, or for yourself where you don't want to go through and track what each of the individual short little codes might mean, you can have a much more human-friendly version, and you can color code the material. Don't be scared to take a look at the code version. Don't necessarily change it, but don't be scared to take a look at the code version. Sometimes it's useful. And if you do go in and make a modification in the code view, if you mess up the structure, it actually will flag it and not allow you to switch back, and you have your undo option. So don't worry too much if you're testing, experimenting a little bit inside this environment. All right, back to the author view. Friendlier, easier. Time is tight. Let's do a couple of additional quick things in the repository. In the repository under the topics, the third entry is charging considerations. You'll see there's a little icon next to that. Another user, happens to be Alex, another user has that file checked out right now. I can take any file, click on the ellipses, and do a multitude of things, including check out the file. Really important one, especially if you're working in a large group of people. The file's now checked out by me. I'm the only one who can modify it. Nice to know. If an administrator needs to come along, that can actually be changed. But for the time being, the file's checked out by me. No one else will make a modification. Just closing up things, saving files quickly, etc. Right, pricing. Okay, let's go in and take a quick look at this file as well. Remember I changed the price on that? I dropped it from like 100,000 down to 89,000. If you show markup and then you compare versions, so make sure you use that versioning, the version 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, take advantage of things like the comment or the version labels. But if you use that, check this out. I can do a compare. Red and green, strike through and insertion. There's so much that I can do as an author in order to track what's happening inside my files. So a lot of really, really powerful capability built into the system. Use it. We're getting close to wrap up. So if there's any questions, anything you want to put into the chat for those who are in the live environment, obviously if you're watching the video, I can't do much to help you out. You can reach out to me. I'll put my contact information at the end. But if there's any questions, throw them in the chat. All right, so let's see. We've talked about templates. We've talked about snippets. We've gone in and worked with reuse. I've shown you the author view. We've streamlined a bunch of different things that you can be doing. Keyboard shortcuts, lists, bullets, numbers. Lots of this stuff would go into the summary. I've demonstrated how to create content, locking files, versioning, comparing. So I want to show you assets. This is the Word document that we ingested earlier, and I'm going to select it. My workflow put it into the Word to Data environment, so I'm going to actually take it and move it elsewhere. I can change around properties along the way by clicking and typing. For example, a recap for the day. Again, avoid names with spaces. You don't actually have to remember that. As soon as you try to type a space, it just prevents it. I'm moving it out of the Word to Data into Demo, and then into the English source folder. And a few moments pass. There it is, recapping the day. So let's pop it open and take a look what's in here. In the map, I can hover and click that first icon. This thing started off as a Word document earlier today. The map preview is also really helpful. Remember, I started off with this document. That table was a picture. If I was to delete that from the file, I could actually grab a table out of a Word document or an Excel file, copy and paste it. Some really cool automated ways to bring content in. Into the final minutes, and I'm still going through and talking through tips and tricks. So under an hour. Yes, if you're using Adobe Experience Manager Guide, there's a lot of stuff that you can do, and hopefully I've been able to give you a bunch of shortcuts in order to, at the end of the day, work less and do more. It's actually a lot of info to try to pack into the time we had. So tips and tricks, content creation, templates inside guides, check mark. Content reuse, not just the copy and paste. We went in, we did reuse of the same topic across multiple maps. We worked with conrefs, conditional content, code view, and author view. I also showed you a couple of additional shortcuts, things that you could do to speed up your work just as I worked my way through. I tried to cover a little bit of everything. And again, time is always the enemy. The Word document that we loaded became a map. I dropped it into the English folder in the Manage tab. Amongst other things, I could actually go in and select the language for German and kick off translation. I'd be remiss not to show you Publish. Check this out. That Word document, drag, drop, I reorganized it, moved it into another different location, gave it a name. Now I'm going to publish it. These are out of the box, so AEM site. Let's go do it. I'm going to go and view the output just before we wrap up. All of the information that you see here, this was just a Word document, drag and drop. Now I've gone and published it. Because I had title, day in the life, because I had my heading ones for things like the intro or the additional shortcuts, because I had a title level 1 and 2 for the tips and tricks and the information that comes underneath it, this is what I'm able to do. I can come along and I can take source content that was unstructured Word, bring it into AEM Guides. Within AEM Guides, I can do a bunch of things as a day-to-day user of the system. And I showed you a couple of tips that apply in the case of a system admin as well. But broadly speaking, this is the way that you should be working with content. Let people create and contribute, then take that information, review it, manage it, and once you're ready, publish. That workflow is completely automated through the Guides environment. So if you're looking for more information on AEM Guides, feel free to reach out to me. I'll wrap it up where I started, back at the log home. So we've got this, it's finished. There's always going to be other things that you want to do. You set up an environment where things are supportive, things are developed, and then you start to work and you realize there's other things that need to be done and changed. So in our case, on the outside of the house, we wanted to put in some additional steps. We want to work with a dock. We want to build a boathouse, so we need a platform for it. There's other things that are being done. In the same way with content, with the CCMS, you're going to install and configure and set it up and start working with it. And you're going to realize here's additional things that we want to do. I've shown you some of those, some of the template work, some of the snippet work, some of the content reuse with conditional content and so on. Once you've got that done and you think everything's resolved, you move on to the next adventure. In this case, if you recall, if you were here a year ago, I mentioned that my wife and I went and we did a tour with Andy the Highlander and explored some of the scenes and sites in and around Scotland. Specifically going to Lallybroch. This is us on the steps of that location from the Outlander series. And you get together and you celebrate the wins. That's exactly what you want to do with your AEM Guides implementation. You want to go in, you want to build it up, but then you want to take that and start figuring out what's the next adventure. What's the next thing that you can do with the system? That might be something like native PDF. It might be something like working with smart templates. And you want to share these experiences. Here, we're traveling. We've brought along friends and family in order to go to Iceland and explore. At this point in time, consider what you're doing, again, inside the world of your own CCMS adventure. You go through, you start to learn, you attend sessions like this, take the information that you've discovered, that you've learned, and apply it back at the office. Share it, talk to other people, give them the experience of being able to successfully do things. Help develop the internal skill set so that you can continue to do the fun things, the interesting things. QR code again, or just do a Google search for Bernard-Aschwanden LinkedIn. You're going to find me. But top left, QR code, that'll get to my LinkedIn. Bottom QR code, that'll get you to our precision content page where you can register and we'll do a demo, work with you with your own content, give you a chance to actually see it and experience what happens in the real world when your content gets into the AEM Guides type of an environment. Lastly, a big thanks to Adobe, Stefan, the entire sales team, the marketing team, the development team, the customers that we're working with. I mentioned things like taking a look at the Mayo Clinic presentation that Sebastian and I did so that you can see smart templates and the native PDF capabilities. These types of functions are built into the product because my team has the opportunity to talk to our customers and to talk directly to the Adobe team and work together in order to build and improve the product into what you see here today. So a broad thank you to everybody, and of course to every single person who's attending this session or watching the video after the fact. Appreciate your time. Look forward to speaking with you in person. Take care.